This is DevOps Dispatch Live from KubeCon North America, Chicago 2023. The name gets longer every year. My name is Kat Cosgrove. I'm a lead developer advocate here at Dell, and I am here with my friend
Christoph Blecker. Hello.
Christoph, what do you do?
Lots of different things. My day job, I am an architect and senior principal site reliability engineer with Red Hat.
Ooh.
I also, in the upstream, I am a Kubernetes maintainer. I am an emeritus member of the Kubernetes Steering Committee, and I sit on the CNCF governing board.
That's a lot of politicking. That's so much politicking.
A lot of different hats, and only one of them is red.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, that's a good line. That's a really good line. So how long have you been around?
I've been practicing. So I've been involved in the Kubernetes community since 2016. And then I've been a maintainer since like 2018. I've been very active in SIG contributor experience. That's a really big passion of mine, is on being able to enable new contributors to contribute to the Kubernetes project, as well as to the CNCF landscape as a whole. And then I kind of caught a bug for open source governance because I, again, wanted to ensure that the thing that we're all working together to build is sustainable and it is around for many, many years to come.
So what does it take to become a Kubernetes maintainer?
That a title isn't officially around anymore. So I've been around so long. There used to be a maintainer title, and there used to be a process to apply to become a maintainer. But the contributor ladder in Kubernetes has kind of shifted towards a lot of delegated responsibility out to folks, so that we can enable many different people to contribute to many different smaller parts of the project, and being able to grow in their influence as they hey, you worked on this little part, we're going to give you rights to keep maintaining that one little part of the project. And as you grow and touch more parts of the project, and you build reputation and trust and all that kind of good stuff, then you can expand your influence to lots of different sub-projects all throughout the Kubernetes ecosystem.
Would you consider running for something like steering to be part of the contributor ladder? And what is that like, running for steering and then sitting on steering?
Steering is a very unique job because the goal of steering is to delegate as much of what we do out to other people. So in Kubernetes, we don't have like a global technical body that makes technical decisions on behalf of the entire project. The steering committee is the top governance project, but does not make any technical decisions. The point of steering is to make sure that the governance processes and policies that we have enable the right people, the smart people, the people who are actually developing the code, writing the docs, making sure that the infrastructure and tools and all that kind of stuff are running, making sure that they are empowered and enabled to do their job most effectively, as opposed to kind of centralizing that power in one small body. But the main thing the reason we need a steering committee in the first place is there's lots of things that come up that we weren't anticipating come up. So it's those little kind of key pieces that we haven't anticipated. We need somebody to figure out, okay, so who's the right person to delegate to? If there's ever a dispute between two different parts of the project on who owns or is responsible for a specific piece of code, there needs to be somebody that ends up kind of settling that dispute. And that's really where steering's role kind of comes in.
What's the difference between steering and the governing board?
So the steering committee in Kubernetes is responsible for project level decisions in Kubernetes. And again, their focus is making sure that we have the right governance policies and procedures to enable the actual developers, docs writers, community members as a whole, that they have the right things that they need to do. As opposed to the governing board. So the governing board is the CNCF body, and the governing board handles oversight for the foundation to make sure that the foundation staff has a budget that is approved and is going to do the right things to make sure that the projects, that the conference like KubeCon that we're holding, as well as the broader ecosystem around the CNCF, has the tools and the money and the support that they need.
That's important. And that's scary, though. That's scary. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but it's worthwhile work.
Sure.
Because the health of our community is so important, and like, so I'm on the governing board as a maintainer representative. There's most of the seats on the governing board
they're for companies.
They're for companies.
Yeah.
They're for people who pay memberships into the CNCF to kind of have a say and to have be stakeholders in the CNCF's processes. But there are elected members from the like gold and silver tier companies, as well as there's 2 members that sit on the governing board actually representing the developers, the maintainers, the community on that board. Again, just to make sure that
there's some oversight.
We're all going in the same direction, and that the voices of the maintainers, the voices of the project are represented at every level in what we're doing, including at that kind of like top governing board level.
Cool. So you've been around for a minute, and you've served in virtually every leadership capacity that's possible within
most of
the ecosystem.
I haven't done the TOC, and with all respect to the TOC, there's an even much harder job than mine.
For the listeners, what's the TOC? The
TOC is the CNCF's Technical Oversight Committee. So those are the very smart, very talented group of people who do things like define what is cloud native. And they debate and provide oversight on the individual projects to make sure that we bring the right projects into the foundation, as well as to make sure that the projects, as they grow and improve and graduate through the various levels, that again, they have the kind of oversight and support that they need to be at the kind of the different maturity levels within the CNCF structure.
I am not smart enough for that position. I'm just not. And I'm okay with that.
I have so much respect for the folks that do that. They're super talented and they're super passionate, and it's such a critical, important role in the ecosystem. And that is definitely universal among everyone who sits on the governing board, of just like so much reverence and respect for what they do, because it's such a critical role.
So what do you, in all this time in the Kubernetes project, across all of these different positions of authority, what do you think has changed the most about the Kubernetes project or the community over the years?
I think it's going to be a little bit of a cliche answer, but it's just the growth and the size.
Yeah.
Like we, starting from just the Kubernetes and the Kubernetes core, and then these like large projects that spawned out of, okay, so we've got this cloud native model, we've got this Kubernetes model. And one of the key beautiful features of the way that Kubernetes was developed is it's designed to be modular. It's designed to have lots of extension points, so that we don't need to bring every feature into the Kubernetes core. We can allow a flourishing ecosystem to expand around it. And that's what we've seen year over year at KubeCon. There's always something going on. There's some new technology, there's some new use case. You know, I can remember KubeCons where it was service mesh, and there was all different kind of service meshes that had gone.
I remember hearing about service meshes nonstop in San Diego.
Yes. I remember, I can't remember which one, but there was one where it was cost management.
Yeah.
And FinOps was like the big thing that like, hey, so we've got all these things out in the cloud.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that we're not, running up unsustainable bills?
Right.
This convention, like the thing that I keep hearing from everybody is around AI.
Yeah. And it was S-bombs for the last 2.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So like there's always a theme, and it's actually healthy to see the ecosystem kind of being like, hey, we're going to figure out what the hot topic is, but then we're going to kind of distill it into actual projects that we can support. And what are the actual use cases for these new and advancing technologies, and what makes sense in that kind of cloud native definition in the ecosystem?
Yeah. I don't think any of us expected it to get this big, like, because it's not just Kubernetes anymore, right? It is a whole ecosystem. And I think I stay relatively isolated in the project, right? I live in SIG release, and I don't really leave SIG release a whole lot, right? And SIG release, I think, is guilty of forgetting how large the Kubernetes project is outside of itself. We forget how much influence we have over other people's lives. And that's reflected in how absolutely outrageous the shadow applications have gotten.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And like the ecosystem, like it's very interesting to see when you kind of just send something out into the world and see what happens. I've told this anecdote before, but like when I was getting involved in Kubernetes, like prior to my work at Red Hat, I worked for a number of years years at Disney, and that was my first kind of exposure to Kubernetes. And I would talk to my boss, and like in a big kind of corporate infrastructure, like the question for your boss, like, where do you see yourself going in 5 years?
Oh God, I still don't know how to answer that question though.
But the response to that was, the technology that I'm working on didn't exist 5 years ago, so I have no clue where it's going.
Yeah.
I can't use that excuse anymore because we've definitely been around longer than 5 years. But like, it's you don't know where this is going. You don't know where the ecosystem is going to take it. But at least I think it's a very safe conclusion to say, like, the cloud native model with Kubernetes at its core isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
No, it's too large, it's too ingrained. And like at this point, the ecosystem is so large that you could spend your entire career sitting in like a corner of the ecosystem and never touch Kubernetes directly.
Yes.
Which is wild.
Well, and it's at the point, like, again, like I've been involved for so long, and I did touch the code base a whole lot. I haven't really meaningfully touched the Kubernetes code base in a while. And there's some sections where I'll go and look at it, and it's like, when did that happen? When did that happen? Because there's so many, like hundreds and thousands of people who are touching the code base, bringing their interesting use cases, bringing in bug fixes, finding all these like interesting corner cases and uses. Like when you can run Kubernetes in so many, like Edge and Telco and all these like new interesting use cases, like it's evolved so quickly. Like I don't really know where it's going, but I'm definitely like along for the ride. It's interesting to see how much this has grown and how many people are like new students, like the student track when they were introduced at KubeCon a few years ago. The student track is one of those things I love to watch because it's interesting to see these new young folks coming into tech, and it's like, no, I really want to learn cloud native because this is kind of the hot spot to be in. This is where there's like growth and interesting new innovation.
Yeah, and it stayed the hot spot to be for like a minute, you know? So I want to know what in like 20 or 30 years is going to make what we're doing right now look primitive. Yeah. Like I can't imagine it.
I'm interested to see like on the time frame of like 20 to 30 years, like technology, you know, prior to getting into cloud native stuff. My background was I spent over a decade as a network engineer.
I was an embedded Linux engineer. So
so it's like there's some of these technologies that are like, oh yeah, this has been around 20, 30, 40 years. And it's just gaining maturity now. And the movement is so slow, like trying to getting, you know, RFCs passed through the IETF and that kind of stuff are things that take years and years and years. But we're at the point where it's like technology has outpaced a lot of those things. We are moving so quickly. And the innovation is so broad and so wide. I don't know where we're going. But at least, again, like I think Kubernetes is like a very interesting now really embedded core piece of the technology stack. Like it's as ubiquitous as Linux at this point.
It did feel like it took off abnormally quickly though for a new technology. Because like containers have been a thing since FreeBSD jail. That's a container, right? It's absolutely a container. And it took decades for containers to really like take off as a thing that everybody's just doing. Containers are good. We're doing containers. But Kubernetes felt like nearly an overnight success.
It honestly, like it wasn't originally. Like I was around when there was like the container orchestration wars. When we're talking about things like, you know, Mesos versus Swarm versus Kubernetes and that kind of stuff. And there were different kind of competing technologies to orchestrate your containers. Because building a container and having a standalone container, that we've been able to do for a very long time. But the magic,
we weren't able to make it useful.
And the magic was being able to like spin them up, orchestrate them, connect them, and network them together. Being able to have resources that can move from system to system in order to enable those workloads to kind of float between the cloud and like enable that kind of concept. And the thing with Kubernetes that I think really like help people take off is like the resource model, the API model was expressive enough to be able to handle some complex use cases, but it was simple enough that people could, for the very most basic use cases, you could onboard really, really quickly. And the power of open source is like we commoditize it in such a way that anybody can run Kubernetes. You could run Kubernetes on your laptop. You can
Yeah.
run Kubernetes on a bunch of Raspberry Pis.
I learned Kubernetes because I needed to make Kubernetes run on a very small embedded device. I was using K3s for it.
Yes.
K3s is the wrong way to learn Kubernetes.
You can still take, like, one thing that I found really interesting with K3s was like being able to take the Kubernetes resource model and the Kubernetes API, swap out some of the components underneath to enable to run on these small embedded little devices.
It was great. It worked really well. It solved my problem.
Yes.
And then I was hugged.
And that's, again, was one of the things that drew me into open source. Like, again, my background, as I said, I spent a decade as a network engineer. I'm not a developer by trade.
Yeah.
But the power of open source is being able to take, like, hey, there's this concept, or we're describing this concept and we're backing it with code. Take this code and change it. Like, fork it off into and make it yours in your own little use case. And when you do that and you get it working, then contribute back. And share it with other people so that people can see your ideas and then build on top of that. And it's an infectious thing. Once you get open source and you get the power of open source and collaborating with people that work not only just at your company, but people all over the world, people who are students, people who are research institutions, other companies, competitors, like, you can all work together to have this, like, common platform that solves really complex use cases as well as really simple ones.
Yeah. It's also just, like, really fun.
It's
genuinely just fun. I love being on the release team. You're not supposed to sit on the release team for, like, years the way I do, but it's fun.
Being able, and, like, this is one of my biggest joys now, is being able to connect smart people together and let them just be smart together. It's so interesting to see, like, ideas spread that way. And that's the thing that keeps bringing me back. Is like, I care so much about this community, and I care about the opportunities that we bring, that, like, I want to make sure that this is alive and sustainable for many years to come.
And I think it will be. I think we're being good custodians of the project.
I sure hope so. And if anybody feels differently, let me know. Let me know what you would like to see differently, because I love to hear and talk to people that have differing viewpoints than my own.
Well, if you didn't, we wouldn't go anywhere. You know?
Exactly. And that's like the concept of servant leadership. Like, I've served in these leadership roles, not because I think I know better than everybody else, but that it's very important to me to listen to others and be able to integrate all those voices to make sure we have a safe community, a community where people want to be here and want to bring their interesting ideas here, as opposed to just going off in their own little corner. Like, when we can work together, when we can collaborate together, that's the power of open source. That's the power of Kubernetes, and this spawned the rapid growth of our community.
Are we Kubernetes?
We're all Kubernetes.
We're all Kubernetes.
We're all Kubernetes.
All right, that's about all the time we've got. Do you have any closing words for the people in the booth and on the recording later on?
Go contribute.
Please do.
Like, find your favorite project. Go look up their contribution docs, find the nice happy path. Most of them have, like, new contributor guides. Kubernetes has a new contributor guide. Go read, go learn, and go find out how to meet some of these smart people to be smart together.
Yeah. If you don't know which one you want to start with, just come to SIG Release and sit on the release team for a cycle, and you'll have to talk to all of the SIGs. So.
It's a great place to get started, and that's why so many people want to be shadowing on the release team.
Yep. It's fun. All right. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everybody in the booth, for listening.
Thank you for having me, Kat.
Of course.
Cheers.